Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this year's first ARPC Faculty Fellowship Workshop. For those of you, yes. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Sarah Clark Kaplan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center here at American University, where we work to bring together scholars, cultural practitioners, policy advocates, organizers, and change makers based in communities to create change in the areas of racial justice, decolonial practice, and intersectional liberation. As you know, at ARPC, we are particularly excited about supporting research that is intersectional, that thinks about race, gender, class, citizenship, and other relations of power as interconnected and inextricable. Transnational, that understands that race and other relations of power don't exist in a vacuum in a single nation, but have to be understood as crossing the boundaries of nations, regions, and continents, and that are relational, that think about the relationships between different communities and places. Furthermore, as a center, we believe that research and policy, usually thought of as something in the realm of the social sciences, requires engagement with cultural production and cultural representation. As we always say at ARPC, that you can't change social structures without shifting culture. Otherwise, you have these temporary moments, but no long-lasting change. If we're seeing anything in the US right now, we are seeing that policy shift without culture shift is building on very loose sand. So that is part of why we are so thrilled to have the opportunity today to host this workshop for Sybil R. Williams for her reading of a new production, She Talks to Empress Menen, Ethiopia. For those of you who do not know the history of this reading, Sybil R. Williams was our very first ARPC Career Advancement Fellow, a fellowship that was created in order, yes, let's actually give her a huge round of applause for that. As our inaugural Career Advancement Fellow, Sybil Williams has worked on this production through research, creation, and collaboration for a year and a half. These fellowships award faculty who are engaging in groundbreaking and impactful scholarship and practice in the areas of racial justice and/or decolonial practice. And support those faculty who show the capacity for great distinction in those areas. We give this fellowship to faculty who are working full-time, conducting research that centers questions of race, racism, racial justice, or decolonial practice, but also those faculty are faculty who we believe, through their presence on campus, make a difference in the equity, diversity, and justice existing on campus, whether it's through mentoring students, whether it's through the course material that they teach, or whether it's through their own research or practice. And I think all of the affiliates and all of the community members in the room who know Sybil Williams can say that it's obvious why she seemed to be such an excellent candidate for this fellowship, since she checks every single box. And I'm going to have a moment. I didn't touch it and it went to sleep. Lily told me I had to make sure to keep touching the screen, and then I forgot. So on that note, I'm going to tell you one thing about how this works. This is not an official final performance of this amazing work in progress. And I say that because I suspect once you see how amazing it is, you're going to forget that. So I want to remind you what this is. As part of the fellowship, in addition to the other kinds of resources that we provide to support the work, we feel strongly that part of what we provide is a community of like-minded thinkers. And so every fellow has the opportunity to hold a workshop to share their work with a select invited group of colleagues and thought partners who can then provide feedback on the work in progress to help support it and move it forward, not just financially or materially, but in terms of thought, creativity, and practice. And that is what this workshop is today. I say this because after Sybil and this incredible cadre of performers and artists we have here today do their performance, we will be opening it up to not only question and answer, but also feedback. I encourage you to take advantage of this workshop setting and to really provide Sybil the kind of support, praise, and feedback that she's worked so hard for. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Sybil R. Williams, and then we'll start, and then she will move us on from there to start the show. Sybil Williams is a playwright and dramaturg who currently teaches in both the musical theater program and the Critical Race and Gender Studies department, where she Critical Race, Gender, and Culture Studies department, where she serves as a program director for African American and African Diaspora Studies. Her play From U Street to the Cotton Club was produced by the In Series in January 2019. An additional play, Gloria and Rwanda, was produced by Fresh Theater as part of their New Works Development Series in July 2019. Her play Stormy Weather, an adaptation of Shakespeare's Tempest, recently premiered at the Atlas Theater in October 2019. She has also completed an adaptation of Mozart's Magic Flute entitled Black Flute with the In Series, which premiered in spring 2021, and has co-authored an adaptation of Alcestis, which will premiere in the In Series in the fall of 2020, which premiered in the In Series in the fall of 2023. She's currently working as a dramaturg on 2 New York City premieres, the off-Broadway production of hip-hop musical Sinking Ink in New York City for this spring, and The Winter Circus, written by Joe Calarco and Ben Clark, which is still in development. And I'm thrilled to add to that biography that this production in its final form is already slated for production within series in 2025. So we'll have an opportunity to see where it goes, and I think that's just such a celebration for Sybil Williams, but also for In Series. So with no further ado, I'm going to move forward and hand the mic over to Sybil to give you a sense of where we're going from here. Thank you all so much.
First, I want to say thank you, a major thank you to Sarah and Lily and all of the Nalani, all of the members of the Anti-Racist Policy and Research Center. I have the utmost gratitude. This would not be happening without you. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the Critical Race and Gender Studies program. I want to say thank you to theater, musical theater. I want to say thank you to all of my staff. I want to say thank you, all my students, and to everyone. This has been quite an honor, and I am so, so grateful for all that you have done, everyone. Briefly, I just want to say this started out as a performance ethnography project in keeping with what the center does, and quickly grew into something a lot more profound and important. It began with me thinking through the work of early Rastafari women, the Howellites, and how their healing practices and their practices derived from Kumana and other indigenous forms continue to inform Rastafari to this day. And as I dug into that, I realized that something much more, I won't say much more important, but something greater was happening to me. And that is, I began dreaming about this woman who was an opera singer who hears the call to action when Ethiopia is invaded in October of 1934 and responds to that call in her own artistic way. That was my creation. It came to me out, like most things do, out of nowhere, and I'll get into that later. But I thought, oh, that's an interesting thing to think about. As I began to research, I found out I did not make that up. This woman's name was Mamie Richardson, and she was a renowned opera singer in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And she actually did tour the Middle East, ended up in Ethiopia, and became Emperor Haile Selassie's emissary to work with the Ethiopian World Federation to invite the first group of African diasporic repatriates back to Shashamane, the land grant that His Imperial Majesty gave to members of the diaspora for all their support during the Second Ethiopian-Italian War. So I did not make her up. As my colleague Molly Collins, Dr. Molly Collins often says, she tapped you on the shoulder. She wanted your attention. So the research shifted, and I am still doing that work. There's a lot of work to be done there. It is not performance ethnography work. It is now archival work. The Archives of the Ethiopian World Federation is another act of preservation that has to be undertaken. We've got to make sure that those documents live. And so that has become what this work, Ethiopia, is about. Ethiopia was the first living newspaper, as you see in your program, that was never produced because of censorship from the White House. So one of the ways of looking at the importance of the Ethiopian World Federation and what they actually did was to juxtapose the work they did with what the government was attempting to do to advocate on behalf of Ethiopia. Initially, the Federal Theater Project, I should say, not the government. Because ultimately, the White House, the government censors the project, which is why it doesn't get any development. But this play has been running around my soul for about 20 years when I first was introduced to it, because it's so present all the time. That literally, while His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie is appealing to the League of Nations, the United States, France, and Britain are working covertly to assuage and appeal Mussolini. So we know that this play attempted to address that duplicity, and that's why it got censored. But in revealing the play, there's something else that becomes very clear too. The way in which we think about Ethiopia and those who advocate on behalf of Africa. The government was embarrassed at their portrayal of their treatment of His Imperial Majesty and Ethiopia. The greater embarrassment, I suggest, is the script. The script refers to, when it does refer to Africans at all, as, at best, the worst kind of savage caricatures. So it's funny when you think about the layering of this, that you were embarrassed, the government was embarrassed to be portrayed a certain way, but the real embarrassment lies in the reality of the script. So this is my attempt to write that, to write Mamie Richardson into history, and to hear the voices of the Rastafari women that I did build community with, who are still committed to Pan-Africanism, and the vision of Mamie Richardson into this play. So without further ado, I want to introduce my cast. This is our amazing opera singer, Shanna Ashero. She's going to be playing the lead, Zora Richardson, one of the leads. The rest of the cast is our amazing students. Sierra Fall is going to be playing Sahay, who is Zora Richardson's great-great-granddaughter. Vishrut Shukla is going to be playing His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie. Mercy Asamoah is going to be playing quite a few people, so keep up, please. Mercy is Secretary of State Hull. She is Sir Samuel Hoare, and she is a Rastafari woman, so she's 3 people. John A. Wilson is our UN chairperson. She is also Benito Mussolini, and she is a Rastafari woman. Julie is Pierre Laval, Malaku Bayan, and General Villasanta, and a Rastafari woman. And finally, Hanak Daba joins us as our Nyabingi drummer, and our very own Fetla Work Daily joins us as a chantress. So without further ado, Ethiopia, I am going to be reading the stage directions, so here we go. Scene 1. Sahay enters, dancing and singing traditional Rastafari hymns. She wears a beautiful gele made of sumptuous red, green, and gold fabric. She carries a straw basket and begins to build an altar with the items in the basket.
And she shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth fruit in season. She will not suffer thy foot to be moved. Psalms 1:3.
Sahay begins removing the items from the basket and placing them on the altar one by one.
One copy of National Geographic, June 1931. One traveling hat. 1 traveling suit, sensible shoes, 1 bone china teacup, 2 pieces of stationery that smell like coffee, 1 scarf with brown, green, and gold trim, a program. By Imperial Command, Mamie Richardson, American dramatic soprano, presents After Dinner Concert at Villa Sally Selassie, Monday, August 13th, 1948.
Zora enters wearing a 1940 simple traveling suit. She kneels at the altar, lights a candle, and begins singing.
I'm gonna tell you about the coming of the judgment. Fare thee well, fare thee well. I'm gonna tell you about the coming of the judgment. Fare thee well, fare thee well. There's a better day a-coming. Fare thee well, fare thee well. There's a better day a-coming. Fare thee well, fare thee well. In that great getting up morning, fare thee well, fare thee well. In that great getting up morning, fare thee well, fare thee well. There's something strange, strange like magic about putting your foot on the soil of Africa that gives you a sensation you've never had before in your life. I felt it and experienced it, but cannot explain it.
Sahai continuing to build the altar.
The conquering lion of Judah, the coronation.
Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls come tumbling down that morning. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls come tumbling down. Yes, I was completely overcome by the spirit of freedom, untrammeled freedom. I was at home once more with my people.
Princes and princesses must trod out of Egypt. Ethiopians now stretch forth their hands to Jah-Wajah of Ethiopia. I, divine majesty, thy iris trod into I to dwell in the paths of righteousness. Lead I. Help I to forgive, that I might be forgiven. Teach I to love loyalty on earth as it is in Zion.
I felt happy, secure, and moved. It was indeed the land of my heritage.
Sahai returning to the program.
Her spirituals breathe the pain of a once oppressed people, and at the same time portray the spirit of a gifted, invincible race.
She turns back to her altar.
This Naibini is an offering. It is a gift of freedom, beckoning me to step into my own life. I believe in the promise of Africa. I believe in the love of African people, but do I believe in my own love? What do you do when love is no longer a refuge, but a place of war? War with our brothers, war with our sisters, even war with our children. What do you do when black women don't walk easy, rest easy, smile easy? What do we do when our beauty is lost to war? This Naibini is for you, Zora Richardson, the woman who called our people home to Africa in the midst of war, founding the Ethiopian World Federation, Princess Sahai Local 34 in Chicago, and then home to Ethiopia at the request of an emperor.
Patria mia,
She had the most beautiful music coming from her.
A little black girl from up south Michigan, traveling around the world singing Verdi, standing before a black king and his queen. I was a miracle, Sehe. There are so many of us.
I don't know whether I conjured her, called her, prayed her.
They finally acknowledge each other, and Sahay lays her hands in Zora's hands.
I knew that one day you would call my name, that it would break you open, make you stop and breathe in your own beauty.
Barefoot as Makeda, I become a proverb. I am a woman twice born, all kinds of spirits visit. We pray in breath long and unbroken. Let the hungry be fed, the naked clothed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, and infants cared for. Deliver I and I from the hands of our enemies, that I and I prove fruitful in these perilous days.
You will walk ancient paths. There will be breaks, ruptures, and losses, but you will not lose your way. You will find the path that suits you. It will call our name. I give you this story of my journey to start you on your own.
Her words calling foot to travel.
Following the music that gave me voice, dreaming of singing at the Met, I first fell under the spell of Aida at Juilliard. Aida was an Ethiopian princess held captive in a strange land. I could hear her longing in a language that was mine. I knew her. This little black girl from Detroit was crowned. Verdi's Italian became like a warm sweater or a silk scarf, something soft, something familiar, something that was mine. But I was still longing for home, my home.
Suddenly, Zora finds herself outside on Lenox Avenue, swept up by a crowd of protesters.
Italy was set to invade Ethiopia, and I fell to my knees. Folks were always protesting something or another in Harlem. Socialists, Garveyites, women for this or that, but this brought me to my knees. Later, I heard the fight would come to the American stage, that the Federal Theater Project had decided to take on the problem of Ethiopia in something called a living newspaper. The cast was a group of African opera singers who were only in New York because they were broke and stranded. We fed them, gave up a spare bed or two, and cheered this brave collaboration on. But it wasn't to be. No? The Works Progress Administration sent a directive. No one impersonating a ruler or cabinet shall actually appear on the stage. If it is useful for you to do so, the words of such persons may be quoted by the others. I very much hope that the script is susceptible of such modifications as to enable you to present it. They wanted President Roosevelt's words to make the play as realistic as possible. Well, I guess there is only so much reality folks can take. The White House was afraid to let art be their mirror, to let art show them their true face. But we would not be erased. We would write ourselves into history. Oh, my daughter, there is great beauty in struggle, and we shimmered. We wanted the world to see us stand, to see us standing for 3,000 years of freedom. They could not, would not, put us down. So we came together to build the play we wanted. This was our Ethiopia.
Suddenly, I was inside a story that was not my own.
Part 2, Ethiopia, the living newspaper. Scene 1, wall, teletype, wall. Ethiopia, December 5th, 1934. Italians, Ethiopians clash near Somaliland frontier.
After attacking our guards and committing all these crimes in our own territory by its own men, Italy wants to put the blame on us and condemn us for it as if killing our soldiers is not enough. She went even further, asking for an apology and compensation.
We would not begin with Ethiopia falling, but with Haile Selassie I rising.
Scene 2, Geneva, Switzerland. League of Nations receives official government statements.
Gentlemen, the official Ethiopian statement to the League is as follows. Addis Ababa, December 20th, 1934. The Wall region in Ethiopia territory, which Italian troops have occupied illegally for years, the situation is increasingly serious. The Italian statement. It is denied in the most emphatic terms that our troops have advanced into Ethiopian territory. The town of Wall has been garrisoned by Italian troops for years. The Ethiopians have committed an act of flagrant aggression.
Scene 3, teletype, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Haile Selassie I defies El Duce.
Italy is still building up its military preparedness, and Italian government top officials openly talk that their major plan is to occupy our country. Consequently, the hour of war is getting closer with each passing day. Italy is stubborn not to settle this question peacefully. She wants much blood to be shed and to be avenged for the Battle of Adwa. The people of Ethiopia, whom Italy wants to dishonor by calling them pagans, are people who honor their words and respect the treaties that they have signed. Ethiopia seeks no war, but she will not refrain whatsoever from defending herself against any aggressor.
Teletype, Rome, Italy. El Duce must proceed with military measures.
Italy can and will be present and present a whole library of documents and photographs bearing out our claims against Ethiopia. But the accelerated pace of Ethiopian military preparations renders it necessary for us to proceed with further measures of military character. We must have reached an agreement if certain European nations had not worked against us. But we shall go forward until we have founded a fascist empire. England may storm and threaten, but we will achieve our purpose despite her. The road has been traced out. It is one road, the right road, the only road. Italy is for peace. I am for peace. But what I have started, I will finish.
Teletype, London, England. Sir Samuel Horn.
England stands for peace. She will never abandon any reasonable chance that may offer itself for helping to prevent a disastrous war. For this, we have no ulterior motive, but a motive of peaceful settlement. Are the facts that Italy needs expansion and that complaints have been made against the Ethiopian government sufficient cause plunging into war?
Teletype Paris, France, Premier Pierre Laval.
I speak in the name of France, which does not follow any egotistical ends. France has her legitimate desires for protection, for security, but she intends to undertake her part in the necessary work of reconciling the differences of these two nations.
Teletype Washington, D.C., Secretary Hall.
With goodwill towards all nations, the American government asks of these countries, which appear to be contemplating armed hostilities, that they weigh most carefully the declaration and pledge given in the Pact of Paris, which was entered into by all the signatories for the purpose of safeguarding peace and sparing the world the incalculable losses and human suffering that inevitably follow in the wake of warfare.
Scene 4, Teletype, Addis Ababa. The King of Kings mobilizes.
Soldiers of Ethiopia, today is the day of days. Today you must go forth, united under your chieftains, obeying them with one heart, that the enemy who comes to invade our native land may be repulsed. Soldiers, the opinion of the entire world is revolted by this unprovoked aggression against Ethiopia. And so I say to the strong, to the young, be brave, be ready. To the old, be brave, be ready. Help us in this sacred struggle with your prayers. God will be with us. Long live Ethiopia.
Scene 5, Teletype. Mussolini calls to arms every man, woman, and child.
Citizens of Rome, a solemn hour is about to strike. 22 million Italians are gathered in the squares of Italy with one heart, one will, one decision. We are not only an army, we are 40 million Italians marching because the blackest injustice is being attempted against us, that of taking us from our place in the sun. When, in 1915, Italy threw her fate in with the Allies, how many were the cries of admiration, how many promises? But after the great victory which cost Italy 600,000 dead, 400,000 lost, 1 million wounded, when peace was being discussed around the table, only crumbs of the rich colonial booty were left for us to pick up. For 13 years, we have been patient with the circle tightened around us. And now, instead of recognizing the rights of Italy, the League of Nations dare talk sanctions. But until there is proof of the contrary, I refuse to believe that the people of France and the people of Britain will want to spill blood and send Europe to its catastrophe for the sake of a barbarian country unworthy of ranking among civilized nations. Never, as at this historical hour, have the people of Italy revealed such force of character, and it is this people of heroes, of poets, of saints, of navigators, of colonizers, that the world dares threaten sanctions. Italy, entirely and universally fascist.
Scene 6, Teletype. Ethiopia Unity rallies Harlem. On August 3rd, 1935, 25,000 black and white New Yorkers marched down Harlem Lenox Avenue to protest fascist Italy's plans to invade Ethiopia.
The Amsterdam News, the Chicago Defender, the Baltimore Afro-American. Ours was an Ethiopia come black.
Zora and Tahay as protesters sing the UNIA anthem
Ethiopia, thou land of our fathers, thou land where the gods love to be. As storm cloud at night suddenly gathers, our armies come rushing to thee. We must in the fight be victorious, when swords are thrust outward to gleam. For us will the victory be glorious, when led by the red, black, and green. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black, and the green.
We were African people marching all over the world. We were in Harlem, Chicago, Detroit, London, St. Kitts, Jamaica, Trinidad.
And we were willing to fight Mussolini to the death. 8,000 in Chicago, 5,000 in Detroit, 2,000 in Kansas City training for combat.
We had His Majesty's promise to us that we could return to Africa. We would welcome them back to Ethiopia, their fatherland. There is plenty of room for them here, and we are certain they would be of the greatest aid in restoring their ancient land to its pristine glory.
The invitation spread far and wide. The coronation of His Majesty and Empress Menen, a black king and queen crowned on the same day, made that promise real for me. And everybody out here, what would happen to us if Italy colonized Ethiopia?
I am many women standing inside this story.
Scene 7, teletype. Swedish Red Cross Field Hospital destroyed in an airstrike.
Empress Menen speaks to my heart. I am a woman who knows war. A Red Cross lies in the dust where the wounded seek refuge among the dead and those still waiting for death. It was once a hospital, when a crackle, then a flame split jagged the belly of a young mother. A baby girl lies in the rubbish. She is a eulogy of tiny hands. We women work, gathering the children mostly in silence, even when prayer demands a sudden wail. We women gather the children, the ones burned to blister and shine when the Italians take to the air. Our hands emptied and full, then empty again. I hold the baby in the palm of my hand, a naked altar, offering her up to God with a simple declaration, "You are beautiful." Then I simply let go. I become Empress Menen.
Scene 8, teletype, New York Times. Empress Menen's talk purposely jammed. British say the radio speech from Ethiopia was interfered with and received poorly in Britain. Sahay becomes Empress Menen, speaking to the World Women's Association.
I am pleased to present my speech to all world women. Even though world women are living in different countries with different climate, all women are interrelated with the same will and objectives. War is distress and trouble of mankind. All world women are in different countries, different race, religion. The act of violence and war victimize their husbands, brothers, and children. War is the destruction of the family and creates homelessness. So women are against war. We know that even Italian mothers worry about the war, since war is good for nothing. Therefore, all women found in the world should prevent the war before it brings trouble and distress. They should collaborate their voices and request to avoid the war before the bloodshed comes on both sides. Ethiopia does not think of violence as a means to resolve conflict. Her wish is to maintain peace. Ethiopia tried to settle the conflict peacefully in early months. In every aspect, Ethiopia has done her best. So we have a clear conscience. The enemy deployed its army and set up bases around our country to kill our women, husbands, children, brothers. Our people live and work peacefully, being God-fearing. But the enemy is trying to devastate the wealth of the country and destroy our family in the name of modernization. All women of the world should struggle to bring peace and justice. Government officials may guide it on the line of God. We pray for this, and you may collaborate with us. You could hear the voices of many women.
Everyone is entitled to divine life, but not everyone is walking in that way. This liberty is more nourished when you go into the challenges and changes in life, and you hold on with integrity and live, and do not find yourself doing things, not dealing with others the way that they deal with you. You wouldn't like them to deal with you in that way. And once you overcome all these things, you go up into the divine level. People don't like the roughness of life and the challenge, but that is what builds your character.
Iron sharpen iron.
Our royalty lies in our divinity. Our sovereignty is of a divine level. The universe works with us and will help us do everything to survive.
Scene 9, teletype, Adjua, Ethiopia, October 6, 1935. The Italians wiped out the defeat of 1896. The principal square of the city, is now dominated by a monument to those who died in 1896. The citizens of Adjua are made to salute the general and the Italian troops.
In the name of Victor Emmanuel, I declare this the shrine of Adjua, where 10,000 of our Italian fathers went to a glorious death. Forever part of the Kingdom of United Italy, to the fallen heroes of 1896.
Teletype, a rainy Sunday at St. George's Church in Addis Ababa. Empress Menen kneels in front of an icon of St. Mary for peace.
I hear Empress Menen praying. Salutation to the word of Father Jesus Christ, who is with peace. Salutation to him who said unto me, ask what thou wishest, O my mother. Wish for what pleaseth thee. By means of this prayer, whosoever shall be healed by this prayer of severe sickness and illness shall have a firm faith therein. By means of it, those who are fettered in bonds of Satan and are in captivity to him shall be set free. By means of it, those who are afflicted shall be relieved, and all those who are suffering in the bonds of misfortune and oppression. When this prayer hath been recited over them, they shall be relieved forthwith.
When I met the Howlites, they invited me to go. When I went there that night, I see them all setting up service. It was Miss Campbell, first with a white cloth spread over a table, with a white mug with water. Then you have the oil lamp, shade, clean, full of oil that was lit, and then Leonard Howe's picture was on the table, and she had a Bible. She had a songbook, and she was singing the ancient Senki songs, them like we have same song about Ethiopia. Those days she used to sing, and she sing that same song in the 6 o'clock hour. And she sing up to 8. And then the Naya Bingi start to play. Then the Bingi play up to midnight. And then midnight, they put away the Naya Bingi and put on the Kumina. Different kind of drum. Drumming for different situation in the Naya Bingi one. Then you have the Kumina. Kumina is more fertility. It's about prosperity. It's more healing that is done. The women, they use their pelvis to pair with the drum. Leonard Howe, when he took the drum, which was more healing, because, you know, we were at the stage where you have to put up a fight with the enemy. And at the same time, healing was done for the people and the youths and the elderlies. That's what the Kamina drum was for, ancestral.
Scene 10, teletype, Geneva, Switzerland, October 7th, 1935. The League votes sanctions against Italy.
It is the opinion of this council that the Italian government has resorted to the war in disregard of its agreement under Article 12 of the Covenant of Leagues, and thereby committed an act of war. The chair recognizes Great Britain. Oh, wait. It would seem that Italy has taken the floor. He's saying, there's no more treaty, no more friendship with Ethiopia, and I appeal to the conscience of the world to witness that Italy is being wrong.
The League is now faced with a great task. Action must be taken at once.
Now Ethiopia has taken the floor. He's saying, at the very moment, the Italian government is rolling up the most highly perfected engines of death and destruction that have ever been imagined by the most advanced civilizations, engines of whose existence the people of Ethiopia never even dreamed. And the day after they think to the instruments of carnage, the Italian government issues bulletins of victory. Enough. Britain, please.
The first objective of which is to stop this war. It is my duty to state that Great Britain...
I wish to affirm the statement of my colleague from Great Britain. France, too, fully intends to discharge to every one of her obligations under the League Covenant. She will continue passionately to seek a solution by conciliation.
Gentlemen, I have here the results of the balloting on 3 questions propounded this morning. These results are 56 nations embracing every country in the world except Japan, Brazil, Albania, Iceland, Costa Rica, Hungary, and Arabia will refuse to supply arms to the aggressor nation, Italy, under any circumstance at any price. 53 nations embracing every creditor country except the United States, whose government, however, will not protect such loans, will refuse to give the aggressor nation, Italy, even a day's credit. And finally, 50 nations, constituting 70% of Italy's trade, undertake to purchase nothing more from the aggressor nation, Italy.
Scene 11, teletype, Malaka Bayan establishes the Ethiopian World Federation.
Whatever water touches land, you will find Ethiopians there. The primary goal of the EWF was set forth thus in its constitution: to promote the love and goodwill among Ethiopians at home or abroad in order to maintain the integrity and the sovereignty of Ethiopia, to decimate the ancient Ethiopian culture among our members, to correct wrongs, to end oppression, and to cut out for ourselves and our posterity a destiny worthy of our ideal of perfect humanity, and the aim for which Jah created us, not only to save ourselves from annihilation, but find our place in the sun. In this effort, we are determined to seek peace and to pursue it, for this is Jah's will for man. We are out to create the United States of Africa.
I didn't know it then, Sahel, but I was being called to my destiny.
Scene 12, teletype, the League of Nations. At the League of Nations, there's a small table at which sit Laval and Hor. They rise and shake hands after a good day's work.
The governments of Great Britain and France, meeting in the persons of Sir Samuel Hoare and Pierre Laval at Paris on December 8th, have, after due deliberation, evolved the following plan as means of calling a halt to the present conflict and ensuring the perpetuation of world peace. In the north, Italy shall receive from Ethiopia all of the province known as Eastern Tigray, including the cities of Adjoa and Makalo, already in the hands of Italian troops. In the south, Italy shall receive from Ethiopia a territory 250 miles wide and 700 miles long, extending from the British Somaliland frontier as far west as Lake Rudolph, and including all of the provinces of Ogaden, Bale, and Boran. In fair and equitable exchange for these territories, Ethiopia shall receive from Italy the city of Assab and the use of the corridor leading to that city. We do therefore sincerely recommend the acceptance of these terms, which embody, in our opinion, a just and equitable settlement to both of the nations concerned, a settlement which is born of the spirit of fairness to all, of fair play and equal consideration to the great and the small, the powerful and the weak.
Congo betrayed. Burkina Faso betrayed. Ghana betrayed. Guinea-Bissau betrayed. Togo betrayed. Burundi betrayed. Uganda betrayed. Algeria betrayed. Nigeria betrayed. Ethiopia betrayed.
Scene 13. His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie appeals to the League of Nations.
There is no precedent for a head of state himself speaking in this assembly. But there is also no precedent for a people being victim of such injustice and being at present threatened by abandonment to its aggressor. Also, there has never before been an example of any government proceeding to the systematic extermination of a nation by barbarous means, in violation of the most solemn promises made by the nations of the earth that there should not be used against innocent human beings the terrible poison of harmful gases. It is to defend a people struggling for its age-old independence that the head of the Ethiopian Empire has come to Geneva to fulfill this supreme duty, after having himself fought at the head of his armies. At the beginning, towards the end of 1935, Italian aircraft hurled upon my army bombs of tear gas. Their effects were but slight. The soldiers learned to scatter, waiting until the wind had rapidly dispersed the poisonous gases. The Italian aircraft then resorted to mustard gas. It was at the time when the operations for the encircling of Ma'ale were taking place that the Italian command, fearing a rout, followed the procedure which it is now my duty to denounce to the world. Special sprayers were installed on board aircraft so that they could vaporize over vast areas of territory. a fine, death-dealing rain, in order to kill off systematically all living creatures, in order to more surely poison waters and pastures. The Italian command made its aircraft pass over and over again. That was its chief method of warfare. The object was to scatter fear and death over a great part of the Ethiopian territory. These fearful tactics succeeded. Men and animals succumbed. The deadly rain that fell from the aircraft made all those whom it touched fly shrieking with pain. All those who drank the poisoned water or ate the infected food also succumbed in dreadful suffering. That is why I decided to come myself to bear witness against the crime perpetrated against my people and give Europe a warning of doom. The doom that awaits it if it should bow before the accomplished fact. What have become of the promises made to me as long as October 1935? It is collective security. It is the very existence of the League of Nations. It is the confidence that each state is to place in international treaties. It is the value of promises made to small states that their integrity and their independence shall be respected and ensured. In a word, it is international morality that is at stake. Apart from the kingdom of the Lord, there is not on this earth any nation that is superior to any other. Should it happen that a strong government finds it may, with impunity, destroy a weak people, then the hour strikes for that weak people to appeal to the League of Nations to give its judgment in all freedom. God and history will remember your judgment.
Scene 14, teletype. The Ethiopian World Federation sends signatures representing over 8 million people to the League of Nations. The League of Nations receives a protest statement signed by 209 organizations from 21 different countries. Ethiopian World Federation protesters gather.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion.
Well, the wicked carried us away in captivity, required from us a song. How can we sing King Alpha's song in a strange land? Just then I could hear Empress Menon whisper, I love my country, its old ways. It is the soft metal bronze of my skin, a patina of anciency, polished wholly. It is the easy lay of line curving to sharp cheek. It is a head full of dove's wings curling to rebellion. I have worn my name for over 3,000 years. Now the Italians are here and we are fallen like dogs in the street. This is progress. Prayer is time's weapon, wielded by those who are patient. I know the power of my blood daughter. We as African people knew that Ethiopia would be free. We knew we were free.
Scene 15, teletype. The Italians are defeated.
People of my country, Ethiopia, today is a day on which Ethiopia is stretching her hands to God in joy and thankfulness and revealing her happiness to her children. This day on which the people of Ethiopia are freed from oppressive foreign yoke and eternal servitude, and on which I am enabled to rejoin my people whom I love and have longed for, will be honored as a holiday to be commemorated annually as a great Ethiopian anniversary. On this day we shall remember those heroic warriors who, determined not to surrender the great charge passed on to them by their father, became sacrifices, shedding their blood and breaking their bones for the freedom of the land they loved and for the honor of their emperor and their flag. The history of Ethiopia will be witness for these our warriors.
Scene 16, Mamie Richardson at Coke Hall, where the room was packed and with many organizations present, the Ethiopian World Federation, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and the Afro-West Indian Welfare League.
First of all, I want to thank all the members of the Ethiopian World Federation, Local 31 here in Kingston, the UNIA, and the West Indian Welfare League for the invitation to convey the words and wisdom of His Majesty. I had no idea when I first stepped out on the street that Harlem summer day in 1935 that I was a miracle and that we all are. I am the daughter of slaves who saved a kingdom. I am a woman who sang about queens and princesses and then was crowned. An emperor and empress heard me pray in the voice of all my ancestors and called me to this work. I was called to be something, someone I couldn't even imagine. Now you are being called. The emperor sends his greetings and asks that you please receive this message. There is a land grant in Ethiopia now for all black people to go and claim a bit. His Majesty wishes black people to know and learn more of their ancient history, to learn their native language, to know and learn more about their own religion. This is what he has sent me to tell you and to assist you in getting there.
Part 3, A Daughter's Work. We return to Sahay's altar. We hear a chorus of contemporary Rasta women speak as Zora wraps Sahay's head in a special green, gold, and red head wrap.
Daddy was a church, holding us line and sway in the prayers of the Biggie Men. Halfway between Jamaica and Africa, the altar of his voice calling me to Freeman's Hall where Nanny rides sweet ices. Daddy was a church. Melembe panga, melembe pa tutu, yakalawa sedungumba, sumba diambu. But I never knew what he was saying. Where your drum was, daughter. Where's your drum?
Tree snail shells bleached white, a single piece of coral, the weight and heft of limestone, the promise of water. This Leonard Howell's earth, the first Rasta, where something struck I listened. When you hear Rastafari, you cannot wrong. Believe you me, the scripture came to me say that. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted in the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit. It is so beautiful to know Rastafari. It is not easy, but once you come on and take on the flesh, him guide you. You don't need nothing more. Him just guide you and teach you. Just flow through inside you. Flow, flow.
Where is your drum, daughter? Where is your drum?
Daughter, this is women's work. Stay on the righteous path, the path of goodness. Stay grounded in the liberty. Forge relationships with the divine majesties. Go into deep ice seas. Connect with Kadamwe Haile Selassie, the first himself. Connect with Empress Menen herself. They will guide. They will usher the I's journey. I and I, the Rastafari faithful. I and I don't see death. I and I really believe that I and I go on realm after realm after realm. Our irities travel on and on and on for an infinity to tap into the irids of I and I aritical parents and to bring them forward in this physical dispensation, in this space. That's what Rastafari have done. I and I have defied Kadamawe Haile Selassie. I and I, Blue Fire, have defied Empress Menen Assault. These are the traditions of Kush. These are I and I's traditions from time immemorial. Son, I and I don't shy away from these traditions. I and I hail a living Jah and Jahs, the Melkoda land grant in Sashimane. It is one of the greatest things of I and I liberty, the fact that His Majesty gave that land to I and I in the West as a thank you for his support that was given to Ethiopia, to I and I to come on home, was a beautiful thing. It still is very beautiful. Where is your drum, daughter? Where is your drum?
Zora Richardson, you are my drum.
Ethiopia was the beginning of my work. let it lead you to yours.
Hi guys, and welcome to my
Thank you.
I feel like Sybil is wearing so many hats today that I'm going to take the role of moderating. There you go. I am. I'm just going to turn it on. Thank you. I'm going to take the role of moderating the Q&A and feedback. So maybe let's do this in some kind of less than fully organic way and start with questions, like just questions you have, things, provocations, things you want to know, and then we can turn to sort of, things that struck you, observations and feedback. Can we start with just, things you want to know, clarifications, questions, anything like that you want to ask Sybil about the process or about, even the actors about the process or the history or the context? Go, Talisa, go.
So, one, thank you all. I really appreciated this moment, but especially I appreciate, ARBC with Sybil, every time I see you up doing it, I learn something new. It's such a different discipline, so I really appreciate the opportunity. So, I have two questions. One, can you specify the intersection of opera, I guess, with this? No, I sound terrible, aren't you? I sound so bad. Okay. Yeah, I sound so bad. That sounds so bad. So, but the intersection, particularly of opera, because I think for a lot of people generally, they're used to kind of like the evolution of jazz in African American society, evolution, obviously hip hop, blues, other things. But I think opera is this really interesting genre that more than likely has organic roots that I'm not aware of. So that's my first question. And then my second question, I think is more kind of just clarification and definitional. So Ayadai and Empress, both of them at one point were Empress because that's more of like a woman who's a leader because you are an Empress, right? Am I reading that? So that clarification, and Ayadai is kind of like this self-awareness of women, and they're kind of just, please.
I can get that. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Women who don't want their damn mics.
Hot potato mic thing. The first question is, opera is actually not organically derived from any real African. Okay, opera is not actually derived from any real organic African tradition, which makes this Mamie Richardson's position so interesting. She actually began as a classical singer. She studied at Juilliard, and what she's noted for, ironically enough, is Aida, which is an opera about an Ethiopian princess. That's what she's noted for. And so her work singing about Aida, taking her through the Middle East into Ethiopia to sing it literally in Ethiopia. And the interesting story, Dr. Carter, is that she sang Aida in Ethiopia and had to explain to the royal family why she's singing that opera. They were like, okay, so what is this? Like everybody else would be. Then she sang spirituals, which is why I had her sing, and they were like, this is great. Yeah. So it isn't organic, but it did lead her where she needed to be. The I and I speech is something that is characteristic of Rastafari. It developed in the 1960s with the development of the Nyabingi House of Rastafari. It is an organic house that developed their own language. That language was called Ioric. And Ioric language always references the individual as I and I, meaning I am never individual. I am always I and Jah, I and God. I and God. So it doesn't matter whether I'm talking, it's not gendered. It's not gendered. Mm-mm.
Wonderful. Any other questions before we turn to comments, feedback? And the reason we're forcing this mic on y'all is because, not because we're just mean people, it's because, it's okay, please, but it's because we're recording this, and we're recording it for a couple reasons. We're recording it because we record everything for our records, we're recording it for PR, but we're also recording it because we want you to have it. And so if we can't hear the questions and answers, then it's less awesome for everybody. But you don't have to use it. You still, as we were talking earlier today about consent, your body, your choice, right? You don't have to use the mic. No one's going to make you. So any other comments, questions, feedback that people want to start with if we don't have questions? Yeah.
I'm just gonna go really quick. I'm gonna follow rules. I just really want to go to. I have a 4 o'clock, so I Sybil, thank you. So just a couple things, because we talked beforehand. So one, I really love the drum situation, really amazing. And so I really felt like one, in certain times. So I'm from a very musical family. So in certain times, I felt like the drums was calling to a certain thing, but he was using kind of the same thing. And when it wasn't there, I missed it. So I thought there was kind of like this yearning for a drum, which I didn't know if it was intentional or not. Long time ago when I was taking this kind of stuff, I assume it's intentional, but I just wanted to note that I missed it. And then that chant, kind of like, where's your drum? I thought that was so powerful, and it kind of, I felt like could have been sprinkled throughout in some ways, because like that was kind of the climax, right? Like this acknowledgement that the great-great-grandmother was her drum. So I thought that was dope. And then the second thing is kind of this, sorry guys. Also the chant was super dope with the prayer, super dope. Okay. What are you planning to do with kind of like these gendered intersections? So I realized the word wasn't, but, and you guys did a great job jumping genders by voices and tone. That was awesome. But I thought it was really interesting because clearly the focus in some of the text is kind of like this empowerment, and it is kind of female focused when people do monologues, right? And then when it's called like the militarization and power, like the actual power discussed in the content of the script is all masculine. So that was a really interesting juxtaposition that I thought you might want to explore. And then the only time that I got lost, because we talked about me identifying that, was at some point in the policy things when I do not know your name, but you have right next to you, the Ethiopian woman, the woman in the middle, the Rastafari woman in the middle. When she was, multiple times, she was just enforcing peace. I think when she was representing Italy. France. Okay, thank you guys. And so this kind of intersection of peace, I think I got lost at sometimes about like kind of the political back and forth. And that was it. Thank you, Sybil.
Thank you. That helps tremendously. Thank you.
Yeah, Amara. Sorry, Amara.
That's okay. I'd like to pick up after my colleague, Dr. Carter's question. Hello. The part where the different African countries were named and it said betrayed after each one, very powerful. But please teach me the history that I have not yet learned. Where was the betrayal? Can you speak more about that history? And then the second question, forgive me if you covered this in the moments before I arrived into the room. I am new in my understanding and appreciation of the creative arts, but I know you to be someone with great depth and breadth of your creative knowledge and representation. So why a choreo poem? Why this modality of representing what you have put forward for us today? I'd love to know more about that.
Should I answer or just answer? Okay. Yeah. So actually, the listing of countries is anachronistic. Those countries actually were the first countries to join the Organization of African Unity founded by Haile Selassie, His Imperial Majesty, in 1963. Those were the first countries to join. The first three named, if I'm not mistaken, all had their leaders assassinated. The next group all had civil wars fomented by the CIA in other countries. So literally, I took that moment to comment without elaborating on what happens even after the invasion, when the work of the EWF and United States of Africa, and later His Imperial Majesty, when they attempted that, what happened? They just killed off Thomas Sankara. They just killed off Amilcar Cabral. They just, that's what they did. So that's why I picked that up. The other part of it, the choreo poem, I'm so glad you asked that, because I started out wanting to do a choreo poem. This is not. This is a hybrid of a docudrama, which is why you get all of those speeches. Literally, that's coming. The Living newspaper was a docudrama. They literally took the headlines and the documents from the governments and dramatized them. So I kept that. And then my work is poetic. So I'm working in a modality that Sandra Falk calls poetic inquiry. So I'm taking the interviews I have and translating them into poetry. And I am not sure where I'm going to go with that. Like, I'm really trying to figure out what that hybrid is, where it works, where it doesn't. So I'm glad you asked, because that helps a lot. Yeah.
Others, I'm looking at the, go for it.
Hi. Thank you for sharing. We've talked a lot about this play already, just you and I. It felt right now in this first reading that it is leaning more, it was more informational, and there's a lot of information, and I wonder how you're thinking about, or if you are thinking about sort of traditional, rising drama, rising action, falling action, of Aristotle, and how to get a little more dramatic arc into it.
Actually, that's a wonderful follow-up to Amara's question, because it's a construct question. And one of the things I'm wrestling with, and Jason is my theater colleague, so I'm looking at, is this a meta-theatrical structure? Are we looking at Zora build Ethiopia? So then we are looking at a classic dramatic arc structure. Or are we just going to take Ethiopia as it exists, which is not, which is just that informational, here's the news structure, and build out from there? And I am not sure. I'm still trying. It feels to me like it wants to be meta-theatrical. It wants to be, Zora says, watch me build this play. But I'm not sure yet. I'm still toying with that.
Shoji, yeah.
Thank you. Hi, this was amazing. I thought one of the most powerful moments was when Zora almost crowns, I can't think of the character's name, with the red, yellow, and green head dress. I thought that was extremely powerful to show the connection between a Rastafari woman and an Ethiopian woman, although they don't, Zora's character doesn't sit in the seat of a Rastafari woman or an Ethiopian woman. It's almost as if she was representing that. And so could you give more context and history to the relationship between Rastafari and Ethiopian women? Because I think it's really powerful, and I would like to see a greater connection between them, if there is indeed a connection.
Yes, and yes, I can. It's a long history, though. I mean, and it's a complex and specific history. I can thank you for the note. Write it into the text, though, because Ethiopia is Zion for Rastafari women. That is literally heaven. And the maintenancing of the land grant at Makale and Shashamane is an extension of that idea in a very abbreviated, short form. So that's it.
Yeah, Jason.
Hi, sorry, another question. I wonder how much in your process you think about the staging of this and how it appears on stage, one of the things I was thinking about was the work that you were doing during the reading as reading stage directions, but that almost became another character as you're introducing all of these different scenes. And listening to it myself, I feel like I see a large multimedia aspect to a production like this. So I just wondered how you're thinking about the staging, and obviously you're going to be working with the director and turning it over in some level to that. So, thank you.
The living newspapers were multimedia. So literally, when you see me reading those headlines, that's projections. So what you're seeing are projections, that's all I read. And literally, the actors step out of the headlines and perform. And that is definitely the realm of a director. That is not me. So I am going to just put those words on paper and then say, here you go, good luck.
I'm calling on myself because I have lost my impulse control now. So I don't know if you all know this. I was a theater major, and I worked in New York in theater, and now I'm just too excited. So I have questions and thoughts. So I loved the anachronistic aspect of this, Sybil, and I actually loved the, OAU sort of like reference, and I kept thinking about what would happen. And again, this is the work of scenic design and lighting and other people, but I kept thinking about the opportunity for shadow work there behind a scrim, right? So that as the name goes up on the name of the country, betrayed, and then we see a shadow of the act, right? That moment of betrayal for each of these. I think there's some really interesting work, because I actually thought that the potential for anachronism in this is something I'd love to see you actually play with more. I think that there's something really interesting that you're doing. I think you have enough through lines that you're tying. I think that there's the work that Zora is doing as a kind of transnational diasporic bridge, but there's the work the UNIA is doing as a kind of transhistorical bridge at the same time. So I think there's some power that comes. For example, I think the Where Is Your Drum even, right? The kinds of connection between Rastafari women raising this question of the drum and the kind of different ways in which the drum even as both a rhythm and as a metaphor are functioning as a kind of through line that allows for, I would say, transhistorical resonances, right? And this for me in part is thinking about the work that Black geographers have done, saying that diaspora isn't just across space, it's also across time, right? It's a space-time formation. And so I loved seeing how you're thinking the space, but also the temporality. And that's why I loved the Verity, actually, because Aida is in and of itself a story, a mythical story of an Ethiopian woman at a time of war, who is caught in this kind of imperial and colonial war with Egypt. So I thought these kinds of resonances really did something powerful. I also had the question about the teletype format, and I hadn't understood the staging of the living newspaper, but I think that just opens up so much room, I think, in the writing for the ways in which you're pushing some of these historical characters, not to the point of caricature, but to the old-fashioned kind of notion of the stereotype, literally they are standing for a historical moment. And I think that maybe some of the places where it got muddy between the different European nations, you could sink into that allowing them to stand for a stance a little more, to let them distinguish between themselves if you wanted to, and feel a little willing to free yourself from how nuanced maybe the distinction between France and England might really be. Can they stand in for a particular way that Europe took this, right? Different positionalities, and be, to help distinguish between them. And then this is absolutely not a theater question. This is a ARPC race question, but not a question at all. I think that, don't laugh. I really, as I was watching this, could not help thinking of this particular political moment and the unbelievable resonances with this political moment and the power that this will have at this political moment, that a year from now, this will still be a moment when you talk about children's bodies and rubble and burning and, a fighting of a war of defense when you're the aggressor. And I think that this is such a timely piece, and I can see why M-Series is excited about it, given that. And that's, I think, the other reason why leaning into the willingness to let it be temporally flexible will also give the audience permission to follow what you're already thinking, right? What we're all feeling as we watch it in a way that I think could be very powerful.
That's exactly what started to happen. Just a note, as I started to lean into the right, and I still couldn't lose the structure. I just felt like I'm straitjacketed by this structure. But what started to happen was everything we're hearing every day just filtered into the piece. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Okay, other feedback now that I took over for a second there, sorry. Yes, of course oh my gosh, of course you're allowed to ask questions. You all are most intimately involved.
Just want to add to what you said. It's actually a timeless piece.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can condense this. I was thinking about the history of Western European classical and symphonic music from my studies at Morgan State University. And I know that in this period of Verdi and Puccini that exoticism was when it was happening. But it wasn't connected strongly to the political things that were happening at the time. Like, it was very, cursory, like, oh, yada, yada, yada. They were doing some stuff and they were curious about art in these ways. But it's like, well, wait a minute. And so now seeing how closely, when Aida was created and performed very close to this 1896, that whole thing. And so I was thinking about the Rastafari concept of, I and I, this recognition that even though we are individuated, we're not individuals, that everything is a derivative of the divine. And I wonder what you think of this other side, what perhaps you could call darkness, that insists on its separateness and individuality, but this remarkably and almost absurdly beautiful representation of a woman who was taken from her country. So it's almost like I'm thinking all of that exoticism was this subconscious longing to return to that oneness, but they don't know how to do it. And do you think that that's happening now? But also there's do you think that's happening at all? So I'm thinking about the music history, the political history, and what that might say about today as well.
Actually, as I started to do this work, I started looking at Leontine Price, whose career was built around Aida. There's also Elizabeth Greenfield. There is the very first African-American woman to graduate from Juilliard, whose name escapes me right now, but she's from Baltimore as well, which was interesting too, that Baltimore connection to so much of this. But I think what allowed, there's a really interesting thing. What allowed people like Mamie Richardson, Todd Duncan, Leontine Price, others, to force their humanity to be seen was perfecting this European art form. What gave this European art form the resonance to be impactful were these Black bodies that inhabited that space of longing and said, I know Aida. I know these people. So when they took to the stage, something happened with that work, Leontine Price, that had never happened before. So there is a very interesting thing about how African Americans, again, even as early as Elizabeth Greenfield, used this European form to say, see me, but very much how they also lent depth and realism to the form. And I think that is something that Mamie embodied herself. I mean, she's sang Aida for Emperor Haile Selassie. And she sang it because I'm an Ethiopian returned home. So there was something in that right off the bat, I think. I think you're on to something large.
You mentioned jokingly in one of our first rehearsals that obviously we're doing non-traditional casting and having Jeanne play Mussolini and things of that nature, but I think that there's I don't know, of course there's something powerful about like having words like the blackest injustice spoken by Black women. And so as you continue to develop this, do you plan on keeping that structure of casting and writing that into character descriptions? And also, do you plan on keeping the doubling and the structure that we worked with today, or is that something you see evolving?
I think we're going to have to talk about that, but the original Ethiopia has like a cast of 20, so there is no way there's going to be doubling. I like the playing with race and gender. I like the way in which putting the words of this dictator's mouth in the body of an African-descended person, woman in this case, is something that, for me, I didn't know, Sarah, until we started. I was like, wow, that is so powerful. To hear Mussolini come from Janae was a whole, it just made it a different, it was different and engaging. So that is something I want to continue to play with, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really intense too. Okay, any final insights, final thoughts? The great news is that our amazing playwright and dramaturg is not going anywhere. Not only is she still at AU, but she's also an ARPC fellow, so you will continue to see her around. I encourage you, if you were shy or needed to think through your thoughts some more, to send written feedback to Sybil via email, because this is a long project and there's only so much you take in a day anyway. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. I want to just take a moment and thank this incredible cast, both the AU and non-AU. This really just brought it to life in such an incredibly beautiful way, and I think was really powerful for all of us. I want to make sure to thank the team again, and I want to just do our last minute announcements, because that's what we do when we have you captive. Sorry, we do. So for those of you who are not aware, tomorrow is our second event in our Abolition Everywhere series, which is our 2024 series, right? It is on why returning to, this week, as you may have known, is the 51st anniversary of Roe, second anniversary since Dobbs. Tomorrow's event is on why returning to Roe isn't the answer, a case for the abolition of abortion laws. It's an incredible panel of legal scholars, cultural scholars, and activists who work around the intersections of race, power, and reproductive politics, reproductive justice. It's tomorrow from 5:30 to 7 in the Hall of Science, that room where we always like to do things, the collaboration room 113. There's a reception to follow featuring DCAF, the DC Abortion Fund, who will be talking about their work and just sharing ways to get involved. Also, for those of you who are ARPC fellows, if this was your first workshop and you haven't been to one before, these are really fun. So there's another one coming up in April with our this year's Career Advancement Fellow, Miriam Durrani, who is doing incredible work looking at the sort of functions of imperial schooling in relation to Islamophobia post 9/11 in the US and Pakistan. And once again, I just locked Lily's phone. So we're having printing problems. In case you can't tell, we had major printing problems today. Usually we really just print things out and use paper. And then finally, for those of you who are AU faculty who may or may not be ARPC affiliates, because this is not just for ARPC affiliates, if you think that doing something like this would work, if you do work around race and power and you have a project that you want to move toward completion, a great thing, or a new project that you're just getting off the ground and seeking external funding for, a great way to fund it would be to apply for our research fellowships for AU faculty that start. Our applications are going to be going out on the 1st of February. They'll be due late March on the Tuesday after spring break. We'll be telling you the exact date when we have it. And so if you are doing work that needs completion, that can move your career to this next stage, particularly if it's transnational, relational, or intersectional, please apply for a Career Advancement Fellowship. If you have a seed of a new project that you're trying to move forward toward external funding, please apply for one of our Racial Justice Research Seed Grants. And if you have questions about that, you can corner me or Lily at any time, in person or virtually, to talk about it. Thank you all so much for turning out, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.